Everybody, happy Tuesday. It's January 12th. We are going to start off today by going into Schoology and doing our Tuesday warm-up. Instead of just taking notes on prepositions, you are going to be interacting with them more. And you're also going to be practicing writing a claim statement and coming up with reasons to back up your claim. Okay, so we read an article previously called Leaving Main Street. Now, Leaving Main Street was one in which it was a persuasive essay in which the writer definitely seemed like pro space exploration, right? Why it's so important that we go and explore. Now we're going to read Mars Can Wait, Oceans Can't, which has a different feel to it. This writer is definitely arguing that we need to spend more money exploring our oceans and our own Earth before we head off into other domains and worlds within our solar system. So let's go ahead and read. Background. In March 2012, Canadian deep-sea explorer James Cameron reached the bottom of Challenger Deep at the southern end of the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. Alone in a specially designed submarine, he collected samples and took videos, a skill for which he was already known, having directed two of the world's highest-grossing movies, Titanic and Avatar. So this is going to help us to understand our first paragraph a little better. While space travel still gets a lot of attention, not enough attention has been accorded to a major new expedition to the deepest point in the ocean, some 7 miles deep. The recent journey by James Cameron on behalf of National Geographic. So we're referencing this expedition he went on that's mentioned in the background. Then our writer so far is saying, yeah, space travel gets a ton of attention, but you know what doesn't? Ocean exploration. The cover story of the prestigious journal Foreign Affairs lays out the case for space. 60 Minutes recently ran a story about the dire effects on Florida's space industry of scaling back our extraterrestrial endeavors. Newt Gingrich gained attention earlier this year by calling for building a permanent base on the moon. And President Obama has talked of preparing to eventually send Americans into orbit around Mars. Actually, there are very good reasons to stop spending billions of dollars on manned space missions, to explore space in ways that are safer and much less costly, and to grant much higher priority to other scientific and engineering mega projects, the oceans in particular. The main costs of space exploration arise from the fact that we are set on sending humans rather than robots. The reasons such efforts drive up the costs include: a human needs a return ticket, while a robot can go one way. Space vehicles for humans must be made safe, while we can risk a bunch of robots without losing sleep. Robots are much easier to feed, experience little trouble when subject to prolonged weightlessness, and are much easier to shield from radiation, and they can do most tasks humans can. So our writer is explaining to us why it's important to stop spending money on manned space missions, because we could spend a lot less if they're manned by robots as opposed to humans. British astronomer Royal Martin Rees writes, I think that the practical case for manned flights gets weaker and weaker with every advance in robotics and miniaturization. It's hard to see any particular reason or purpose in going back to the moon or indeed sending people into space at all. Nobel laureate Steven Weinberg calls manned missions an incredible waste of money and argues that for the cost of putting a few people on a very limited set of locations in Mars, we could have dozens of unmanned robotic missions roving all over Mars. So this guy's saying, listen, our argument to man these space flights gets a lot weaker and weaker as we continue to make more technological advances. The main argument for using humans is a public relation one. As Neil deGrasse Tyson puts it in Foreign Affairs, China's latest space proclamations could conceivably produce another Sputnik moment for the United States, spurring the country into action after a relatively fallow period in its space efforts. Also, astronauts are said to inspire our youth and become scientists and explorers. However, it is far from established that we cannot achieve the same effects by making another R&D2 projects our main priority. Projects are main priorities. So, what Neil deGrasse Tyson's saying is look, the thing is that people on space missions, that inspires our youth and inspires people to continue to want to learn and to grow and explore. Take the oceans, about which we know much less than the dark side of the moon. 90% of the ocean floor has not even been charted, and while we have been to the moon, the technology to explore the ocean's floors is still being developed. For example, a permanent, partially submerged sea exploration station called the Sea Orbiter is currently in development. The oceans play a major role in controlling our climate, but we have not learned yet how to use them to cool us off rather than contribute to our overheating. Ocean's organisms are said to hold the promise of cures for an array of diseases. An examination of the unique eyes of skate rayfish led to the advances in combating blindness. The horseshoe crab was crucial in developing a test for bacterial contamination, and sea urchins helped the development of test tube fertilization. The toadfish's ability to regenerate its central nervous system is of much interest to neuroscientists. A recent Japanese study concluded that the drug eribulin, which was derived from sea sponges, is effective in combating breast, colon, and urinary cancer. So, we have our author now discussing how beneficial the oceans are to us and what great things we can discover there. Given the looming crisis of water scarcity, we badly need more efficient and less costly methods to desalinate ocean water. By 2025, 1.8 billion people are expected to suffer from severe water scarcity, with that number jumping to 3.9 billion by 2050, well over a third of the entire global population. If the oceans do not make your heart go pitter-patter, how about engineering a bacteria that eats carbon dioxide and thus helps protect the world from overheating and excretes fuel which will allow us to drive our cars and machines without oil? I cannot find any evidence that people, young or old, Americans or citizens of other nations, would be less impressed or less inspired with such a breakthrough than with one more set of photos of a faraway galaxy or a whole Milky Way full of stars. So here we have our author discussing how we have a water crisis. We need to spend money figuring out how we can use ocean water to help sustain our human life. And then also how they're saying, you know what, we have seen a million pictures of stars and galaxies, and that's all fine and dandy, but I'm willing to bet people would be equally impressed by somebody who figures out how to find a bacteria or creates a bacteria that eats carbon dioxide and helps prevent global warming. Space enthusiasts claim that space exploration has generated major spin-offs for our life right here on Earth. Tyson quotes President Obama suggesting that the Apollo mission produced technologies that have improved kidney dialysis and water purification systems, sensors to test for hazardous gases, energy-saving building materials, and fire-resistant fabrics used by firefighters and soldiers, and adds a few more innovations to the list: digital imaging, implantable pacemakers, collision avoidance, systems on aircraft, precision LASIK eye surgery, and global positioning of satellites. Of course, the space environment is radically different from the one on Earth. Materials and technologies that are suited for a vacuum, zero gravity, and extreme cold and heat are not the ones we typically can use on Earth. Elias Karianis, professor of science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship at the George Washington University, notes government agencies, particularly those such as the National Space and Aeronautics Administration, that are continually pressured to justify their activities, tout the spin-off value of their investments in sometimes quite extravagant claims. Products such as Velcro, Tang, and Teflon that are often cited as spin-offs of space technology did not actually result from the space program. So pretty much this person is discussing how a lot of people claim, or that all the great things that people claim came from the space program, they didn't all necessarily come from the space program, and they don't all necessarily benefit us as humans. Space promoters tell us once every few months that there are signs that there might be or has been water on one of the planets that might make life possible. I wonder if some of those who hear these reports interpret them to mean that we expect to find a civilization out there, one that we could ally with, say, against the Chinese. What scientists are really talking about is organic material, the kind found in any compost, not a reason to spend billions of dollars of public funds. In short, do not cry for Mars. It is not going away. We can send R2-D2 to explore it and still keep a whole pile of dough for important and inspiring exploration missions right here on Earth, starting at the beach nearest to you. So our author gets a bit sarcastic towards the end, and as she references the claims that people make about space being beneficial, and that mainly is to help us to understand that that our author does not believe that we need to be spending so much money. Our author feels it's kind of ridiculous that so much money is spent on space exploration when we have so many needs here on Earth. So anyway, you are going to hop into Schoology. You're going to do the assessment called Mars Can Wait, Oceans Can't, and actually it's called Mars Can Wait Assessment. You're going to do this guy, and the article is in the assessment with audio, so make sure that you listen to that, reread it, utilize it, because the questions are based on the section that is provided in each question. So make sure you focus on that, you do your best on it, and if you are struggling, that you talk to me and Mrs. Garcia. It is our job to help you and to teach you, and we are happy to do it. So please make sure that you're in communication with us about that, and we hope you have a great